Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, and today we're going to be looking at the difference between raster-based images and vector-based images in graphic design. So real quick, let's start off with some basic definitions between what is raster and what is vector. So the best way to describe it is that raster-based images are essentially images that use pixels, or they're comprised of pixels, tiny little squares that when combined make a bigger picture. And vectors don't really use pixels per se. Kind of think of them as blobs or shapes, or very basic elements that can be scaled very big and very small and still maintain its quality. A downside to raster-based images is that if you have a really low resolution photo and you try to make it very big, you'll start to see a lot of the pixelation and a lot of the quality loss, and it won't look as good as what a vector-based images would look at that same size. So to get a better understanding of what this looks like, I've provided an example here that we can look at together. So we're in Adobe Illustrator right now, and on the left here we have a vector-based shape, just a blue square, and on the right we have a raster-based stock image that we pulled from iStock. So as we start to zoom in, you can notice on the right side that some discoloration, some things that look that were in focus are probably not as in focus. The color seems to get a little odd, and you can really start to see those pixels come out in those tiny little shapes. And then if compare it to the left side, it's completely smooth. You don't even notice any sort of squares or rough jagged lines. It's very smooth. So you're probably asking yourself, when would I use a raster-based image versus when I would use a vector-based image? And it really just depends on the application that you're using and what you intend to really do with your design. Think of it this way. Let's say you've got a logo for a company and you want to use that logo on a bunch of different applications. You want it to use it on t-shirts, you want it to use it on billboards, you want it to use it on notepads. That's a very great difference in scale. Something like a 40-foot billboard is going to be huge versus a business card, which is only an inch. So you're probably going to be leaning more towards vector-based images, and that's because of the scalability without losing its quality. Now, the downside to using vector-based images is depending on how complex the design is, they can typically be a little bit bigger compared to raster-based images. Raster-based images are usually compressed, which is why they are pixelated, and even though that they come in a much smaller format, depending on the size, it might not look very good. Something important to point out is that vector formats, although they're big in size, if you don't need them to have that scalability, you can actually export them as a raster image. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work backwards. You can't really take a raster image and turn it vector. Now, there's certain ways that Adobe Illustrator can kind of counteract that, and there's other means of doing it as well. But Adobe Illustrator specifically incorporates something called image trace. So let's take a look at our Adobe Illustrator here, and let's click on our image, and in the top left here you'll see image trace. And if we click that, so if we look at this image has now been image traced by Adobe Illustrator, and you can kind of tell that it's not going to be as smooth because Adobe Illustrator is essentially trying to match all these different shades. And the more and more shades that you get into a photo, in photos there's millions of different colors that are coming from everywhere, and it can't quite replicate those. So it tries to find the next closest color, and you can kind of control that, how many colors that you want to use. If you want to use 3 different colors, 6 different colors, 16 different colors, and you can kind of pick those colors that you want. That's important. So to get a better understanding of how applications like this would work, a great example would be the Hope poster that was provided for Barack Obama's campaign. So this is a normal photo that has been represented in a vector way. And so they added little patterns in there to represent shape, and they actually picked a couple different colors. So instead of using normal skin tones, he told, its programmer, Illustrator, or even just doing it by hand, I want the light to be red, I want the shadows to be blue. And you can kind of control your design that way by using particular patterns or colors or things of that nature. So yeah, that is basically all that you need to know about the difference between raster-based images and vector-based images. So now when somebody comes up to you and asks, hey, I need this vector-based images, you're thinking PDFs, things of that nature that can be scaled up and not lose its quality. And when somebody says I need a raster image, you're thinking JPEGs, you're thinking PNGs, and things of that nature.